Hello everyone and welcome to the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal webinar. My name is Waleed and in this webinar we will focus on the Providers tab and we'll walk through the process of creating staff profiles and searching for staff or agency locations on Provider Portal. LTSS Maryland Provider Portal is an interface for DDA providers to access information on people referred to your agency for services, electronically accept service referrals, bill for the services provided, review and resolve billing activity errors and exceptions, and manage your staff access to the portal. The portal also provides information related to system updates and other important communication from MDH. Provider users can log into the LTSS provider portal by using authorized credentials. On the browser type, I'm going to type in the URL for the LTSS Maryland. The system displays the login screen with fields for username and password. Enter your username and password. Once you have entered in your username and password, click on the sign in button. But I want to mention that please do not share your username or password with anyone. Go ahead and click on sign in. Over here, the next screen displays a pop-up with the drop-down field, choose a site. We're going to go ahead and we're going to select LTSS/ISAS Live 2014 new. And then after we have selected that, we will then go ahead and click go. I want to mention that the site can be accessed with the following browsers. Google Chrome 19 or later is recommended. Microsoft Internet Explorer 8, 9, or 10, and Firefox 12 or later as well. Once you've logged into the provider portal, you first come to the home page of the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal. This is the first screen that the providers see on the portal. On the top of the screen, we can see that we have 7 different tabs. Starting from the Home tab, we have Services, Clients, Providers, Reports, Help, and Feedback. We will go through each one of these tabs throughout the webinar. I will briefly go over what the functionalities are for each of these tabs. As you can see, we're currently on the home page. So the home page displays announcements we can see here from MDH and pending tasks for the provider agency once logged into the provider portal. The Services tab is used to bill for services. You can view entered service details, resolve billing issues, and view MMIS claims and payments as well. The Clients tab is where you can view information on the person your agency serves. The Provider tab is where you can create accounts for your agency staff. This also includes adding your DSP staff information for using the ISAS EVV call-in system. The Reports tab is used to access standardized reports. The Help tab it allows you to access training materials, FAQs, help desk, and MDH contact information as well. The Feedback tab is for reporting system issues. We will talk through all these tabs in other tutorials as well. Before we get started with creating staff profiles, here are the different staff roles in the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal. Admin Provider role is responsible for the agency's administrative and managerial tasks. This user role can perform all functions for the provider agency in the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal, including creating new staff profiles, activating and deactivating staff profiles, managing all billing functions, and accepting service referrals. An existing administrator can also create and designate other staff as administrators. These are the different role-based access that the admin provider can do in the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal. The next one we're going to talk about is the billing provider. The billing provider role manages billing processes. The billing provider can view profiles for persons in service and view staff profiles, but is not able to create or edit staff profiles. This role is set up by the admin provider. And we can see here the role-based access for the billing provider here as well, and what they're able to do and not able to do in the provider portal. The next one is the provider program director. The provider program director role is responsible for accepting or declining service referrals requests. The provider program director can view billing information but cannot enter or modify it. They can also view client and staff profiles but also cannot make edits to that information. This role is set up by the admin provider role. And here is the role-based access for the provider program director. The next one we're going to talk about is the provider program staff role. The provider program staff role assists the provider program director with reviewing service referral requests before the provider program director takes decisions on accepting or declining service referrals. Provider program staff can view billing information but not enter or modify it. They can also view client and staff profiles but also cannot make edits to that information. This role is set up by the admin provider role. Here are the role-based access for the provider program staff. And the last one is the staff provider. The staff providers are direct support professionals who provide personal support services to people. Staff provider roles do not have any direct access to LTSS Maryland Provider Portal. However, for the provider agency to bill for personal support services requiring an electronic visit verification, each staff provider name and details, including their social security number, must be registered in Provider Portal so that the system will recognize the staff when they call in. This role is set up by the agency's admin provider. So here is the different role-based access that we just covered, and all of the things that a provider can do in the system and what they cannot do. Now that we have reviewed the different provider agency roles in the LTSS provider portal, Maryland Provider Portal, we will now go through the steps of creating the staff profile. The provider agency admin provider role can create a new staff profile to enable staff to access the provider portal or the ISAS IVR system. We're going to go ahead and talk about the process of creating a new staff profile. So the first thing we're going to do is from the home page of the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal, we're going to click on Providers. Once we click on Providers, we're then going to go ahead and come to the left navigation menu bar and click on the staff icon that we see over here. So once we click on the staff icon, we're now in the staff search page here under the Providers tab. So now what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and go to the right of the top screen where it says Create New Staff. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Create New Staff. Over here, we're going to go ahead and the first section is the role selection, where agency field is pre-populated with your provider agency's name, as we can see here. Locations is a required field. Select the agency sites that the staff will be assigned to by clicking the checkboxes for all relevant sites in the drop-down menu in the locations field. Multiple sites can be selected, as we can see here. However, all sites in the provider agency are selected by default. This is particularly helpful if your agency structure is broken up by different departments. For example, if you assign all residential sites to your residential services director and all day sites to your meaningful day director. this setup is entirely at the discretion of your agency admin. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select 2 locations here. As we said, we can select multiple locations. The next is roles. Roles is also a required field that defines the permissions for the staff whose profile is being created. The available options are admin provider, billing provider, staff provider, provider program director, and provider program staff. Staff profiles can have more than one role assigned to them by selecting the checkboxes next to the appropriate role. So for this specific staff, I'm going to go ahead and have them be a billing provider and also an admin provider as well. So now that we have selected this, we're going to go ahead and click on the next button here we can see, which will then take us into the demographics. So now in the demographics, we can see that we have all this information that we have to enter in. So we're going to go ahead and enter in their first name, which is going to be Peter. They don't have a middle name, so we're going to leave that blank, and we're going to go ahead and give them a last name as well. If there's a suffix in their name, you can enter that in there. Their gender, you can go ahead and you can select whether they're female, male, or not indicated. So we're going to go ahead and select their gender. For their social security number, we're going to go ahead and enter in the social security number. Their date of birth, over here we can either type in their date of birth, or we can go ahead and use this calendar if we need to be able to enter in that information. So this is a very unique calendar that you can use. It's very easy. We can go ahead and we can even do all of this and go back and have them enter in their date of birth. So once their date of birth is entered, the next demographic that we're going to fill out is the fluent language. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that they speak English and they also speak Russian as well. If there's any other languages that are not mentioned here, we can go ahead and type them out here as well. So now that we have completed the role selection and the demographics, the next section is going to be the employment. So over here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the employment tab. So the required fields for the employment tab are the business title. So we're going to go ahead and say that they are the admin director. So that's their business title for their service. So now we're going to go ahead and select which employment type they are. Are they a full-time employee? Are they a contractor, part-time, or not applicable? So we're going to go ahead and say that they're a full-time employee. And then the next step we're going to go ahead and talk about is the staff effective start date. So over here, this is the staff's person's original hire date. When were they hired? It can be today's date, as you can see already pre-populated for us, a date in the past 1 month, or in the future 1 month as well. So we can go ahead and we can go back and we can select a past date when they were hired, or we can go ahead and select today's date as well. So, or a date in advance 1 month from now. So for this provider here, we're going to go ahead and select today's date. Now that we have completed the employment section for the new staff profile, we'll go ahead and go on to the next section, which is going to be the contact section. So over here, we have their phone number that we can enter in, their email address. So we're going to go ahead and enter in the type of phone that they have. So we're going to say that their home phone. We're going to enter in their home phone number. And if we want to go ahead and add additional phone that they have, we can go ahead and click on this plus icon here. And then this will then allow us to enter in their mobile phone number as well. Once that's complete, we can also see that we have primary. So if I click on primary here and want to make their mobile number a primary number, it's going to be highlighted in a blue box, as we can see here. So we're going to leave it at their mobile number being their primary phone number. If we want to add any notes, let's say that they want to be contacted after 8 o'clock for anything, we can go ahead and say that call anytime after 4 p.m. So they know, we know that we're able to contact them at a specific time, how they want us to. The next one is their email address. So we're going to go ahead and have their email address, enter that information in there. All right, if they also have multiple email address, we can also go ahead and click on this plus sign here, and we're able to enter this information here as well. We can confirm this again, and we can go ahead and see that we have added 2 different email addresses for Peter. So now let's say that we want to delete one of the email address, and they don't want us to contact them through that email address. We can go ahead and do that by clicking on this minus icon where this is, and we're going to go ahead and click on that, and then now that email address has been deleted. So now that we have completed all 4 of these sections, the next step is going to be able to review this staff profile that we've just created and make sure that it is filled out correctly. Prior to submitting the clicking the submit button at the bottom right, it is important to review the all entered information, make changes if necessary. So let's say that we entered in the wrong information here for employment. We can click on edit and it will take us directly into that section. So let's say that instead of them starting on the 2nd of January, we want them to start tomorrow. So we can go ahead and we can make that change, and then we can click on next. Click on next again, and we're back into the review and submit page. So now that we have entered in all this information, I'm going to now go ahead and click on submit. Once I have clicked on submit, we can see that on the top right we have the staff creation and staff successfully created. Staff with admin provider, billing provider, provider program director, and provider program staff roles may search for and view information on the provider staff profiles. We can get to the staff search by going from the home page. So we're on the home page now, then clicking on the providers tab up at the top. Once clicking on the top menu bar for the providers, we then come to the left navigation menu bar where we click on the staff icon. Once we've clicked on the staff icon, this is where we're able to see the staff profiles can be searched with any of the below parameters. So you can search for the date of birth. So you can put in the staff's date of birth if you know their date of birth. You can enter in a date of birth manually. So let's say that if they were born on 4, you can go ahead and type that in there. Or you can also use this calendar here as well for their date of birth. The next way you can search for a staff is by entering in their social security number. You can enter in their staff last or first name as well. Their status, if they're active or inactive in the system. Their phone number. You can also select the provider number that they're currently at or where they were assigned. You can enter that information in there as well. The provider attribute, what kind of provider attribute it is. So it's the LTSSMaryland identifier for the provider type. The LTSSMaryland provider portal is currently accessed by personal assistance services providers, community options provider, programs provider, and DDA providers. Attributes applicable to the locations of the provider are available for selection as well. So we can also go ahead and select their provider role. So these are the different roles that a provider staff can have that we can search for in this staff search here as well. So we're going to go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna look for a staff. So I know the staff's first name, so I'm gonna go ahead and type in Peter. Once I do that, I can either hit enter or I can click on the search button here at the bottom right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the search button here. Once I do that, I can see that I have a staff named Peter and all of their information is available for me to see. Their current status is inactive because we created this staff and we are not going to activate them until tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and click on details over here. We can see. So we click on the staff profile details over here and we can see the different demographics for this staff. So we can see under the demographics all their information here. We can see the employment. So this section has all the fields: business title, employment type, status, and start effective date for the staff. Their contact information, we also have that here. So this section displays the phone number and email addresses associated with the contact. The location, all sites that have been assigned to the staff profile are listed here, and the roles. All the selected roles for the staff profiles are also listed here as well. Their login information, we can also see that here as well. Their information right here, we can see that here as well. And if there's anything else that pertains to their profile, we can see that in the other section here. So we can see their profile created date, and any modification that has been made is going to be in the other section here. Provider agency designated administrative staff with the admin provider role can edit staff profiles that belong to their provider agency and have been assigned to a provider location for which the admin provider user is authorized. So this means that your agency should have at least one person with the admin provider role who has access to all your agency location. This is helpful in case locations when they need to be reassigned if your necessary agency staff is on leave or no longer employed with your agency. Here are the steps that we're going to talk about of editing a staff profile. So I'm going to go ahead and first search for this staff. So I'm going to search for the staff using his first name. I'm going to click on search. Once the search has populated and it brought me back the results that I want, I will then go ahead and click on details. Once I click on details, I am inside the staff profile for Peter. So now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to then click on edit at the bottom right of the screen, as we can see here. So once I click on edit, I am now able to edit the staff details for Peter. So over here for the demographics, I'm able to change anything for the prefix. Let's say that they want to be called Mr. I'll go ahead and in the prefix enter in Mr. For Peter. I can change pretty much any of these fields here that I'm able to have the cursor in. If I want to add more locations for this, I can certainly do that. If I want to assign them to another location, provider location, I can do that. If I want them to sign in for additional roles, I can also do that here as well. Or if I want to unassign them a specific role, I can do that as well. The other information is the login information. So we see the login information, so we can check mark that, and we can give them the login name as well. So we can go ahead and do that as well. We can also go ahead and talk about the employment, so their business title. If their business title has changed, if they've been promoted, you can also go ahead and change that information here as well. If their employment type has changed from becoming a full-time employee to a part-time, you can also change that as well. And then the other thing you can also change is the contact information. So over here we can see that they have two different phone numbers here for us to contact this staff. So we can go ahead and we can add another one here if we want to. So let's say that we want to add their work number where they're currently working at the provider location. I'll go ahead and type in their work number. And then if there are any notes, we can say that wants call anytime between 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we can go ahead and we can enter this information here as well. After you have made the specific changes or the necessary changes, you can go ahead and click save. So once I go ahead and click save, I am then able to see the success up at the top right. Staff profile has been successfully saved. And now if I go ahead and click on the X on the top right, I am now able to search for this client again. Search for this staff again. And if I go ahead and click search, click details here, I am now able to see their work phone number here as well. We can also see that information here as well. When a provider staff is terminated or resigns, admin providers are responsible for deactivating the staff profile with accurate effective date. I'm now going to go ahead and show you the steps in how you can deactivate a staff profile. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by the home page here. We're going to go ahead and click on providers. Once we click on providers, we're going to then come to the left navigation menu bar and click on the staff icon to the left. Once we've selected the staff icon, we're now going to go ahead and search for the staff profile that we want to deactivate. So I'm going to search for the staff by their first name. I'm going to go ahead and type that in there. I'm now going to go ahead and click on search. Once I do that, I am now seeing that the staff name has populated for me and they're active in the system. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on details. Once I click on details, I will now have to go ahead and click on edit at the bottom right corner. Once I have clicked on edit at the bottom right corner, I will now see that there is a button that's a hyperlink which says deactivate staff. I will now go ahead and click on the deactivate staff. It tells me the deactivation date, when do I want to deactivate this account, and the reason as to why I want to deactivate it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that since Friday is their last day, I'm going to go ahead and say that they have moved on to another provider agency, so saying that they have left the agency. Once I've completed this, I'm going to go ahead and click on the submit button, and we can see that on the top right we see staff profile has been successfully saved and they are now currently going to be deactivated tomorrow from the provider portal. Please note that when today's date is selected, the staff profile is deactivated immediately, and if a future date is selected, which I just selected, the profile is deactivated the night before the deactivation date. Once staff are deactivated, they will no longer appear in a search of active staff. However, if the deactivated staff is a staff provider, they will still be able to call in to record services rendered. So let me show you an example. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So now I'm going to go ahead and be able to see their status over here. So once I'm in the status section, I'm going to go ahead and select inactive. And if I click on the search, after the staff has been deactivated, you can go ahead and look up that staff under the status right here in the drop down. So you select inactive and you're able to see that staff that you just currently deactivated populate for you here in this section, as we can see in our staff results as well. Staff with admin provider, billing provider, provider program director, and provider program staff roles may search for and view information on the provider locations they are assigned to. Here are the steps to get to the provider location search page. From the home page of the provider portal, click on Providers on the top menu, and then come to the left navigation menu bar and click on the provider search icon. So over here, once we've clicked that, provider location profiles can be searched with any of the parameters below. So provider name, so we can go ahead and we can search for a provider name or number. So we can go ahead and highlight any one of these here. Only locations assigned to the user performing the search are listed in the drop-down, and again, multi-select is allowed. You can also search by status, so there's a different status, so all, active, inactive, it's already on all for the default. Provider attribute, so this is where you're able to select the LTSS identifier for the provider type. The LTSSMaryland provider portal is currently accessed by personal assistance services providers, the CO programs providers, and DDA providers. Attributes applicable to the locations of the provider are available for selection. Category of service is directly linked to a service, so each provider location is assigned to specific category of service codes depending on the resource available and the services that can be provided by that location. This field lists the authorized categories of service for a provider location. Some examples include 2C for day hab or 2B for community living group home. So now that we have this here, I'm going to go ahead and come at the bottom and click on the search to filter the results, and all matching provider location records are displayed, as we can see here on the right panel. Provider agency location information can be viewed by selecting detail on the provider location. So let's say if I want to go ahead and select on details here, I am able to do that, and once I do that, I come to the agency selection, so we can see that we have the agency name, which displays the agency associated with the provider location. Location information, we can see that here. This location displays the location name, program type associated with location, provider type code, enrollment status of location, provider identifiers, and category of service codes assigned to the location. Provider address, we can see that here. So the list lists the addresses associated with the location where services are provided. And then we also have the business phone number here as well, which is not in. Provider agency designated administrative staff with the admin provider role can edit information on provider location profiles they belong to. I'm going to walk you through the steps on how you're able to edit provider phone number and email address on the provider location profile. So we're going to go ahead and search for a staff. I'm going to go ahead and click on search. Once I do that, I'm then going to go ahead and go to the details. Once I click on details, I'm going to go ahead and click on edit at the bottom right of the screen, as we can see there. Once I have done that, I can see that we have all this information that we can edit. So we can have different sections that we can edit. So we can edit the demographics. So anything that's in the demographics area here, we can edit that. Employment, we can edit that information here as well. If we want to add an additional phone number for a staff, we can go ahead and click on this plus sign. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a phone number. I'm going to enter in their mobile phone number. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. And then I'm going to say call after 4 p.m. Once I have done that, I'm going to go ahead and look at anything else that I want to change. So if I want to change their location or add additional location, I can also do that as well. And if I want to add additional roles for this provider or staff, I can go ahead and do that as well. Once I have made the necessary changes, I'm going to go ahead and come to the bottom right, click on Save. Once I click on Save, it'll give me a success up at the top right saying staff profile has been successfully saved. This concludes the short webinar on provider staff and location administration. This webinar reviewed how to create a provider agency staff profile in the LTSS Maryland Provider Portal. We also reviewed how to search for agency staff, assign agency staff, and search for provider locations. Please watch the other recorded webinars to continue learning the functionalities in other parts of the provider portal. Thank you.